get this basket of velvet leaf seed pods literally came from one plant. So, but you can see it doesn't take very long to gather a lot of plants. And to process, or to gather a lot of seed pods. And again, if you gather them right after the leaves go green, the leaves start dying back from green, you're going to have a lot more seeds. You're going to be able to save a lot more seeds in your seed heads themselves. But there's plenty still left here, so we're going to work with these. So now there's plenty of ways to take the seeds out of the seed pods. I mean, you can literally pick each one out. That would be very time consuming. How people of old used to do it was they used to just take it between their hands and put it over in a bowl, and then they winnow it out. We don't need to do as much winnowing anymore because we have colanders, and the colanders help keep the big stuff up. But the little seeds, if you have a colander, your colander is going to need to have a nice size hole to it for the seeds to go through, because they're a good size seed. Let me just make sure I got all the seeds out of here. So, but these little black heart-shaped seeds are the seeds here, and there's a lot of chaff still in here, but that can be taken out just by simple blowing. So I myself, there are times that I very much like the hand-on approach to working with my food. It feels good. It feels right to literally work with your food the way people of old used to do it. But I do have to admit that we don't live in that age at this point, and if you're going to do this for flour, it's probably not the most efficient way of doing it with flour, is doing it with your hands. Especially since we have things like the food processor, which will do a lot more. What we're looking for with the food processor is more the centrifugal force of it than the chopping up of it. We don't really need this stuff chopped up. We need to get that spinning motion to throw the seeds out of the pod. But some of them are going to get chopped up, and that'll help. Well, here, this is not my food processor. I have two at home, and this one is not mine, not one I'm used to working with. So we're going to have to see if I actually know how to work with this. But you just take your seed pods and put, let me move this out of the way so y'all can see. You put a good amount in there. No need to be shy. And, I mean, the seeds are falling out already. And again, that is just because we're doing this so late in the season. If you do it right after the seed pods turn brown, right as the leaves are dying back, they're still somewhat green, you'll get a lot more seeds with them when you go. Though I do have to admit that once you gather them and get the seeds from here on out, having them partially dry already makes it go just a lot easier. So then you just kind of pulse it. We want a couple good long ones, but then kind of pulsing it. Actually, you start with a couple pulses and then good long ones. And this, like I said, it's the centrifugal force you're looking for more than the chopping up. So if you're saying, oh, these things aren't getting chopped up, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Okay, and so then after you get that done, and you can see this stuff has another name. What is it? It's jute, China jute. That's the other name for this stuff. And you can see the fibers in the plants as you're doing this. But then you just put all these things into your little colander, all of them. And like it doesn't matter at this point. You don't need to really worry so much about the sticks and everything like that. That's not that big of a deal. And then you just kind of shake it out. Sometimes you might have to maneuver things around a little bit just to shake it out, and that gets you some more seeds. And you just do this by batches, and that's what I'm going to do. You do small batches at a time, and just get, knock the seeds out, get the seeds out, and we're going to get those into our plant, or our pot. You can see down in here, we've got our little black seeds here. We also have some chaff. How I do that is, again, I spin it more with my hands, obviously not with the machine at this point, but I spin it with my hands, and this again creates centrifugal force, and the lighter stuff kind of gets thrown to the outside, and the seeds, which are heavier, have a tendency of coming back down to the middle. So if you look, can you guys see? I'm doing this now. It's getting dark here. But if you look here, you can see this is your chaff here, this light stuff here, and that gets thrown more to the outside. And then it's just easy to either pick out, because it usually will bring itself together, or you can winnow it. This bowl is a little bit too deep for winnowing. You want a slightly shallow bowl and toss it up, but you got to do that in a wind, or you can sit outside and you can see it all blow out like that. That's the chaff. The seeds are too heavy just for, if you really blow hard, obviously the seeds are going to fall out, but just a light blow. And this is from very little, this many seeds are from very little work. So you get a lot of seeds for very little work. And like I said, if we harvested this at a proper time, we would even have more seeds. So I'm going to just keep doing this until I get a bunch of this, and then I'll see how much I've got for grinding up into flour. So back in a bit. Okay, so after you get your seeds out, and these are all seeds from one plant. So it took me less than 10 minutes to pick the pods, probably another half an hour to process them, and probably about, just to get the seeds out, and probably about another 10 minutes of winnowing to get the chaff out. I started by taking the chaff out by hand, and this here is the chaff, and you can see it kind of looks like dryer lint. It's really fluffy. This makes good fire starter.
After we get our seeds, I want to kind of dry them out. It's just easier to work with flour that comes from dry seed. If you're going to store your seeds, you're definitely going to want to dry them out. And I like to put them into like a big cast iron skillet or frying pan and put that into the oven and dry it that way. But I don't have that here. I'm not at home, so I'm going to I put my seeds into, this is a cast iron like soup pot. And I'm going to put this into the oven. Now I'm dehydrating this, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on really low heat, probably around 200. If you want, you can do it a little bit lower and then do it for a longer period of time. That's safer to keep the flavor in. A lot of people talk about roasting it. You can certainly roast it if you want to use it like right now. You can roast it to get the nutty flavor out and then use it right now. But once you bring those oils to the surface, you certainly don't want to be letting it sit. So we're not looking to roast it. We're just looking to dry it out a little bit. So I'm going to stick it in the oven. Here we're going to set the oven at about 200, and then your oven has most ovens have what's called a broiler latch, and that means that they stay open a little bit like this. This is because in the modern day ovens, the broiler doesn't stay going the whole time. It'll get too hot and then it'll shut itself down. So by opening the broiler latch, you can keep that broiler going the whole time. And so that's what I'm going to do. I got it set for 200, and then I'm going to put this in here, and because it's in kind of a high, and then I'm going to leave the broiler latch open, and because it's kind of on a higher high sides, this is not ideal for dehydrating. They have cookie sheets here, but I like to have a little thicker, little more surface between me and the heat. So then I'm going to have to stir it. You usually want to stir it with a wooden spoon. So just that keeps you from breaking the seeds up and everything like that. So use your wooden spoon, and this is going to take probably about an hour or so. So I'm going to let that cool, or not cool, I'm going to let that heat up, start drying a little bit of the seeds. some years, if it's a really wet year, it might take a couple hours. Other years, it might take only a short, like this year was very dry, so I'm only going to put it in there for about an hour. And again, we are going to use this right away. You could use this right away as it is now, but if you're going to store it, you want to store it. It's just easier to use it as a dry flour than it is with a little bit of clump to it. So I'm going to let that sit, and I'll be back after the hour. Then I am going to turn it off and let it cool off before I process it. So we'll come back after I've let it cool off. One of the joys of not sleeping is the fact that you do this in the middle of the night, and then you're not bothering so many people. The dorm kitchen is on a separate floor as a sleeping thing, so I don't wake people up by using the coffee grinder. Now back at home, if I was at home, we would grind this through the flour mill. We'd take it to the second to the lowest setting, grind it, and then probably put it through again at the lowest setting. But I'm not at home, so I have to make do with what I have, and I have a coffee grinder. And coffee grinders are something I don't use, but hey, we're going to give this a try here. So I'm going to start putting, I'm going to grind up this and see if this works as a flour, way to turn this into flour. So because we're doing it in a coffee grinder, we obviously are doing it in batches. So we're just going to put this in here. I may need to do small batches, maybe I'll be able to get away with large batches, but we'll just find out. Okay, if you're going to use your coffee grinder as a flour mill, you're probably going to want to have a separate coffee grinder for your flour and maybe mark that as such, because coffee does have a pretty strong smell, and this is going to have a nutty smell. So you probably don't want to mix your flavors here. Scent is very big on scent can permeate flavors and change the flavor. So if you're, like I said, if you don't want to go out and get yourself a mill and you want to use your coffee grinder, it's probably better to have a separate coffee grinder. So we're just going to grind this up. It's probably going to be loud. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of listen until we don't hear the rattle of the seed anymore. You hear how you don't hear the rattle of the seed? And there you go. Now we're going to just take this, and there's our first little bit of flour. There's our first little bit of flour. I'll actually let you guys see where the first little bit of flour is. And we're going to grind this stuff all up. Oh, and it has a nice nutty smell to it. And then I'm just going to put a little bit more into the coffee grinder, and we'll get going with the next batch. And I'll just do this until I get it all ground. And there we go. We have some flour from our velvet leaf seeds, and this is from one plant late in the season. Altogether, with the handwork that I put into it, was probably about half an hour, 45 minutes, which a lot of people who are sitting there, who buy their flour from the store, are sitting there 45 minutes for like a cup of flour, 3/4 of a cup of flour. Wow, that's a lot of work. Well, actually, wheat would actually take much longer than that to go from plant to flour. So this is actually easier to put together than wheat is. Now, of course, wheat has gluten, and we like our bread to have some rise to it. This won't have that, but this can be used in a flatbread. It can be used in bannock. It can be used in many different over-the-fire breads. We're going to actually mix ours with some wheat flour so that we have a little bit of wheat, we get some of that gluten in there.